There. Did I get a thumbs up?
Yes,
Sorry, I
yes,
had something else in
Naomi.
front of the screen.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. Brilliant. Right, so welcome everyone. I hope you've had a good morning so far. So we've got half an hour for this first section, so we'll get right into it. But this session is about the patchwork programme in practice. And we'll be hearing this afternoon from three different teams who will share their learning, insights, and stories about translating physical literacy into practice within community sport. So on that slide there, you can see the diverse list of organisations that we've got on the call. And the way we're going to do it, we're going to go through each team who will have 6 or 7 minutes to share their presentations with you. And then we'll move into a short Q&A after we've heard all of the presentations. So there's the Q&A, no, there's the chat function at the bottom. Please feel free to add your questions in. If it's to a specific team, please feel free to add in that team name or a name that you can see that's presenting so that we know who to pass that to. We will only have a short time for questions, but once we've done this, there'll be the opportunity to go into listening circles and smaller groups where you can discuss some of those themes and get a bit more out of those conversations. So I will hand over first to the first team, Cricket for All. I'm going to mute myself and please just let me know when you'd like me to move on.
I think we're good to go, Naomi. So if you, yeah, perfect. So firstly, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the morning session just as much as myself and Danny have. We've been catching up on a few chats behind the scenes. As a bit of a brief background to our group, we're a combination of two cricket charities, two national charities. So myself and Danny work for Chance to Shine, and Rob, who isn't with us today because Lords Taverners have got a big national event on at Lords today, also part of that. And I guess when we started on the patchwork program, our ambition was as is stated there, making sure that all children and young people can recognise that cricket can be a game for them and they feel that real sense of belonging. So we wanted to set that ambition. So everything that we've done from the start of the program to where we are, where we're going to challenge ourselves moving forward, is truly thinking about, well, how can we make the game as accessible as it possibly can be? It's worth a note that obviously we're within the community sports space, but a lot of our work also does cross over with education. So if you hear education reference within this presentation today, that kind of is why. So we have a lot of coaches that deliver programs in primary and secondary schools up and down the country. As a quick introduction, my name's Ian Gregory. My role is schools program manager for Chance to Shine, and I've also got with me Danny today. Danny, do you want to do a quick intro as well?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Danny Maskell. I am the operations manager for the Midlands and the safeguarding lead for Chance to Shine.
Cheers, Danny. So, Naomi, could you flick over to the next slide, please? So, we're not going to cover absolutely everything that we've done because, we've only got a short snapshot of time today. But what I wanted to share with you is kind of the real headline stuff that we've done, particularly through our work at Chance to Shine and a little bit around the Lord's Tavern stuff. And we kind of started on the point that we really wanted to be brave throughout this whole process because we knew how much time and effort, energy, expertise had already gone into creating the consensus statement. And it was up there, the intricacy of the words, the principles that sit behind it. That I think Charlie reflected on that earlier in the very start of today, that it really is our North Star. And actually, we wanted to say that we're fully committing to that, and how we then went about making physical literacy as part of the DNA of what we do throughout our programs was going to be a really important part of this. So whenever we were in a room with someone, whenever we were delivering a program with young people, with coaches, connecting with teachers, it sat there and it underpinned everything rather than being seen as a completely separate program or area of work. And that was kind of vital in the whole process for us. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we were kind of having that influence in a real organic way, that we didn't feel like we were having to force and educate people and telling them. And of course, that education process is really important. But I think Emma referenced it really well earlier, that actually it's about understanding it from a personal perspective, getting personal before becoming professional. There's some really great stuff in the physical literacy toolkit that YST have produced through the sector group, and we use that a lot throughout our connections with coaches, with teachers. And actually, that really did open people's eyes to, well, what was my own experience of physical activity and movement? And then how does that reflect in the environment and the children and young people who I work with? And that was really important. And, we'd share that with anyone who's looking to get going in that space, that actually having that personal view on it is vital to the next step, whilst trying to get that message across and educating as well. So that's kind of a core sort of approach that we've taken throughout it all. Next slide, please, Naomi. So I'm going to pass on. Yeah, Danny, I'll hand over to you now. But, once we've got that philosophy, Danny's now going to talk through kind of, well, what does that look like in practice? So go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, Craig, I jumped in too soon, too keen. So yeah, I just want to talk to you about some of the actions that we've taken to try and really get physical literacy embedded it into our DNA. So we took a part of the consensus, the red bit, and see which areas we could really influence. Relatively straightforward, but also looking long term as well. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on personal development. So that's with our coaches, with our workforce. We've done some teacher CPD. We've also been involved in some school games organizer conferences and coaching circles as well. And we're a big believer in professional development and believe that physical literacy is already happening within our workforce, but just making them aware via their personal journey about how they can really bring out the physical literacy and the consensus in what they do. The other area is around our resources. So we have a curriculum that is focused on early years all the way up into secondary schools. And we're going to have a redevelopment, a review of our curriculum to really emphasize physical literacy and really put a lens over it to make sure that our coaches and the teachers and the children that we're working with have a real focus on physical literacy. So that's currently under review, and hopefully we'll be able to launch that from September onwards. We also have two other areas that we've really focused on with the Patchwork program, which is a Bright Sparks resource that goes out to the children who participate in our programs. And that is a opportunity for them to reflect on what they've done in their lessons, both physically, but also from a life skill point of view and with a bit of a physical literacy lens on as well. But also we've partnered up with Taskmaster Education, who will enable them to give them some opportunities to do some more cricket themed tasks away from the school environment. Now, that's not just physical tasks, that might be commentating on a game, it might be some art and design, lots and lots of different tasks and opportunities for them to really focus on doing more cricket outside of the curriculum. The other area that we focused on with the Patchwork program is providing some kit provision for those schools to enable them to carry cricket on within their school once we've finished our program in there, with the hope that they continue to use our resources and really embed cricket, but also physical literacy into their schools. And then final point on the slide is just we have a real focus on underserved communities and a place-based focus. So we want to ensure that we are reaching the people who potentially need it most, but giving them an opportunity to have cricket and experience some physical activity from us. So we work in schools with a high free school meals percentage. We worked as part of the Patchwork program with 4 delivery partners focusing on those kind of areas. And our partners in this program, Lord Taverners, also have a special educational needs focus as well. So there were certainly children in our programs within mainstream schools, but also outside of mainstream schools as well. Naomi, can you do next slide, please? And then these are just some visuals on what we've done really. So if you start on the left-hand side, we have an animation which is all of our Bright Sparks and bringing our lessons and our content to life. So we have Cool Catcher, Brilliant Bowler, for an example. But the animation has a really clear physical literacy focus. And you can see the bottom picture on the left is us showing that in a school environment, in an assembly, just to kind of start off our activities. In the middle, that's our Taskmaster resources. So we have lots of resources. It's not the biggest that you can see, but there are loads of different opportunities for those children to really give cricket with a different lens on a bit of a go. And then on the right hand side, this is us talking to teachers and really trying to get across the Move, Think, Feel, Connect part of physical literacy. We have been brave in trying to do this. We are still working on the best method to get it across, but we've had some really good insight and feedback regarding the sessions that we've delivered with teachers and school games organisers as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit of insight, some of the actions and how we're starting to try and implement them as much as we possibly can do. Pass back to you, Ian.
Cheers, Danny. I guess the one thing to summarise is that it's still very much early days for us in this. Like we said at the start, we're being brave. There will be a lot that we learn through the application of those resources and the principles. And one of the things that we're going to do is, as you've heard echoed plenty of times today, is actually speak to the children, speak to the teachers. We've done a little bit of that. So Staffordshire and in particular Stoke-on-Trent have been one of the 4 delivery partners that we focused on. And we've had some great insight. So the next slide shows a few of the examples that we've had back from the children. I'm not going to read these all out for you, and I'm sure you'll get them shared. But look, there's some real gold in there. So one of the coaches that came through some of the PL training that we did, one of the children is saying, my coach is kind and good. I might even take it into my adulthood. And for us, that's it. That's the magic in all of this. If the coach is taking that real applied approach, you will get children going, well, actually, I do see cricket being a game for me, and it's something I'm going to continue throughout my life, which, you know, that is the statement in a nutshell when it's a positive experience. So we'll continue to challenge ourselves on that and take our learning forwards. But it's been a great joy to be part of the programme, and feels like we're only just starting the journey.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ian and Danny, and a really nice way to end that with that quote from the young person. Okay, so we are going to move on to the next presentation. So I will hand over to the team. The Only Way is Eastwood.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we're the Only Way is Eastwood. You can see, so we're made up of 3 organisations, 3 partners within the triad. Ourselves at EFL Community, and then we have Stephen on the call from Rotherham United Community Trust, and Kirsty Beresford, who's the head teacher at Eastwood Village Primary School. And they'll introduce themselves as they go through the next few minutes. The reason we wanted to get part of the patchwork programme was certainly ourselves at EFL and the community. We work with 72 football club charities who deliver across the week a wide range of physical activity-based programmes, around about 2,500 primary schools each year. Our network work with. And that uses a workforce of about 3,000 or plus coaches a year as well, who deliver about 20,000 hours of coach-led activities or programs, which are directed at increasing children's activity, physical activity levels. But what we were aware of through going through the physical literacy program and understanding it and getting to grips with the consensus statement of the last 18 months is that our network of clubs, charities, and the coaches are really, really good at delivering programs, delivering those sessions for 60, 90 minutes a week. But we know that doesn't always fit with every child that we come across. So we kind of needed to go on a bit of a journey to equip and work out how we equip the coaches where they can recognise children's relationship with physical activity and movement a bit more closer. So it's under the microscope a little bit more. And kind of not always having that one size fit all approach to delivery that a network of club charities deliver, whether it's on the playground, on the school field, or in the school hall. We also knew that it kind of didn't necessarily always allow children and schools or equip schools to be active when our coaches aren't there. So we know that we get really good feedback and results for when our coaches are there and those adult-led activities, but we kind of needed a little bit more than that. We wanted to go above and beyond the 69-minute sessions of trying to see how do we inspire schools to look at their own movement opportunities, their own delivery within a school environment where they can recognise the children that maybe need a bit more support or nurture to actually get engaged with physical activity. So it's not always just delivering to those children that are physically active from the start? How do we engage with the full breadth and width of children that we are there and that we serve? So, and that's really why we wanted to work with Rotherham United Community Trust, because they're really good at what they do, and also with Eastwood Village School because of the area that they serve and what Kirsty does there as well. It was a great learning experience for ourselves to work with both partners. But I'll pass on to Stephen now, who will just talk you through about what they got with Rotherham United.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Just a quick introduction. So my name is Stephen Johnson. I am Participation and Schools Manager at Rotherham United Community Trust. So I oversee sort of all the delivery we do with anyone under the age of 16, so schools and communities. So the main reason why we joined up with this project was to try and upskill some of our coaches, not just in their understanding of what physical literacy is, but how they can apply it into their sessions to make sure they're providing those positive experiences for all the children that we're sort of catering to and that we're delivering to. Just to give you a little bit of background on our coaching team, we've got a team of sort of 8 full-time coaches, 3 student casual coaches, and all of them are fairly young, sort of entry-level coaches just starting their career. So it's a great opportunity to sort of upskill them at the early stages, and hopefully then they'll carry on that throughout their sort of careers as they're going. So yeah, like Mark said, it was just about making sure that they understood that physical literacy can help them with their sessions, and it wasn't just about going into the school, delivering a PE lesson or lunchtime or an after-school club, delivering your session and then leaving. So some of the things we spoke to them about was how they can embed themselves in the school and make relationships with the children, the staff, and everything that goes with it to sort of get those sort of positive experiences. And then working through with Kirsty at Eastwood Village, who does it really, really well. We thought that would be a great opportunity to sort of expose the coaches to some really good examples of how physical literacy can be applied and how Kirsty does it in her school. So I'm going to pass over to Kirsty, who's got a really inspiring story that I think sums up the Patchwork programme pretty well and what we were trying to achieve. So
Hey
I'll pass over.
Hi, I'm Kirsty. When we got together and decided how to sort of present all the information and sort of outcomes working on those through this program, we decided the best way to do it was through a case study, and we looked at how this is coming across from a pupil at our school. And straight away I thought about this year 6 pupil, and I'm going to call him Kevin, but he's not called Kevin, so it's going to confuse me, but I'm going to protect his identity. So we've got to imagine that this is Kevin, and this is a ChatGPT special, but that is pretty much what Kevin looked like. He is a Roma Slovak boy. He's morbidly obese, got a couple of siblings who are not physically like him, but his family is known to sort of additional services, mostly because we're not convinced that he's getting the right eating plan and the right sort of opportunities to be healthy. So it's a really sad story for Kevin. And Kevin came to our school, and bless him, he landed into an environment where children are pretty active generally. And if you come to one of our sort of lunch times, everybody's diving around doing different things. But bless him, Kevin was really, so big and so unable and not really confident, didn't feel like he could move. And what happened was I had to give him roles because I'd been given this advice from the early help workers. You must make him move. You must do this. You must this. And I thought, this is a real task, this. So one of the things I started doing was asking him to fetch me equipment and put equipment away. And he's such a lovely lad. He was really well. And then he sat on his bench, and where his bench is, and you'll get to see in a few slides because you can see the actual bench where he sat. I noticed that every now and again he kind of put his hand out and started to save the ball that came across from the football pitch. And I smiled a few times and thought, bless him, he can't, move, or he doesn't feel like he can move. But he's got, he was almost saving the ball. So a couple of days later, I just had a bit of a brainwave, and I thought, I'm going to move those football goals. So the next sort of slide will show you that. But I brought the football pitch next to the bench. And I managed to just get a pair of these football sort of goalie gloves from Sport Direct. And I said, "You're really good at saving this ball, Kevin. We need you in that goal. You're gonna, support this year 6 group." And I know it tells a story and it seems really cheesy, but literally by the end of that little group, and what he did is he stood in the goal, he moved from side to side, and actually was a pretty good goalie. But we've gone from that over this year by ways and means, and he's only one story. I could tell you loads of other stories. But he's one story, and I think it illustrates what we're all talking about. And it's how we get our head round moving away from this participation and excellence. We want people to be enjoying moving and seeing that relationship and move.
Is Kirsty gone?
She might just have paused the signal. Do you want to move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I think when I was with her the other week, the connection
Makes
wasn't
you feel
very good.
better and ultimately stops you from feeling isolated and energized. Friends, he be part of what basically a friendship group, and then it's not a thing anymore. So I know all about him now because he just does that. So his dinner time, he's just part of the team. And if you look, you can see on that slide, you can see where the benches are, and you can see he's there actually playing football. But we literally did move the goalposts. And I think it comes back to we listen to pupils. We've used the research and the benefits from tools and the research that we're being given through this program. So I've started looking and researching all the things from Sport England. I've looked at the nice graph that Ian, you showed us about our connection and relationship with movement. We've done all those things through the pupils. We've asked pupils how they feel and how things make them feel. What we try to do is tweak our provision, the benefits of Rotherham United and the English Football League contributions to think, what can we do? How can we make things just right for them? And do you know, it's interesting because I met my school games coordinator and I got my head down, to be honest, because I felt a bit ashamed because this year we've not done that much competition. And that's because I've put sort of my energies into this programme and I've done much more on targeting and making sure that underrepresented children get the right sort of deal for being active and moving. So I felt really bad. And then I got the game, my coordinators even in this criteria anymore. We're in. Do
you want to move on to the next slide? No.
Is she gonna reappear and start talking again? I'll still be talking.
You want to go with what we've just got off with?
Yeah, I'll just
Kirsty, we're having some issues hearing you at the moment. You keep breaking up, so I think Stephen's just going to come in on the last slide.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. But really great.
I think we got the majority, the most of it. I think, yeah, it was a really good example of what we wanted to expose our coaches to. And yeah, just to give Kirsty a little bit of a shout out because that's just one of many examples that I've been in Eastwood a lot, and the type of opportunities that the kids have got there is exactly what we wanted to expose our coaches to, so they can then take that and replicate it in the other schools that they work in across Rotherham. Some of the things that we've applied just to make sure that this is sustainable and it's not something we do with the coaches like CPD. We do a CPD session with them and then it's never spoken about again. So we've done the CPD with Lawrence. We've teamed up with the guys with the cricket. Mark's done something before I started with them. So we've hit them with a lot of sort of theory around what physical literacy is and some ideas that they can sort of apply. We've rejigged our observation tool. So we're not just focusing now on the physical skills when we're looking at PE lessons or sessions. So we're now looking at the relationships the coach has with the pupils, how they're adapting that more to meet the needs of every child within that group, and the sort of move, think, connect, feel is embedded within our observation criteria now. It still needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's just to keep that in mind with coaches and their practice, that we're not just looking at them delivering a good session now, we're looking at everything else that we've learned throughout this programme. And then we've actually, when we've been putting our schools partnership offer together, we've referenced the move, think, connect, feel within there, and tried to change the language as when we're talking to schools around making sure it's got a physical literacy sort of lens in there, so schools know what we're talking about, and hopefully, the messaging will then hit them, and then they will sort of have that same sort of impact that Kirsty's had. And I don't know if Kirsty's still here or not, but I know we'd had a chat about sort of physical literacy and that being included, and PE being included on their school improvement plan. And she was going to do something similar with her teachers that we've done with our coaches, just to make sure it's sustained and it's not just something that we've done for a year. And, I think we're same as Ian, really. We feel like it's the end of this programme, but we're very much at the start of the journey. So, thank you for the last year and letting us be involved.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, all. That was great to hear, and some love in the chat for the case study for bringing that to life. Just to acknowledge that we are running a little bit behind time, but it's fine. We're going to extend this session a little bit so that we can get to hear everything. And I think it's really important that we're having this time now and not kind of squeezing the presentations too much. So with that in mind, I will hand over to our final team, Junior Adventures Group.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Hasib. I work as the Community Partnerships for JAG. We can go on to the next slide, please. Junior Adventures Group, we work in the childcare sector. So if you know, breakfast clubs and after school clubs, enrichment clubs, PE, lunch supervision, and so on. So we work 90% of the time we're in primary schools. We do support some leisure centres, secondary schools, and other projects during the year. You can go on to the next slide. I can explain why we chose physical literacy. The opportunity came up last year, and we thought to ourselves, how can we best further enrich the children that we work with and our staff? So it's always about developing and improving and just supporting everyone as we can. This is what we're based, how we're going to adopt and implement physical literacy going forward. So what we created was the adventure program, 7 categories, covers all aspects of cooking, water sports, well-being, team games, and everything. And what we've done is that we've got, just like lesson plans, got about 20 or 30 in each category, making it easier for our staff and, more importantly, for the children to access. And the way we do that is through child's voice. So this is what we're going to really use as our blueprint, as our foundation to really embed and raise the awareness for physical literacy through. If I can get the next slide, please. So unfortunately, it's all supposed to have boxes, but they didn't. Oh, they are turning up. So you can follow the colors. So we go top down and then across. So the interesting thing was we're in over 200 schools nationally, and we were then thinking, how do we get this across? To support our staff, we created things that we called centers of excellence, and they're like our training hubs. So anyone that's new to the business, or when we do have our annual training and so on, staff can access these satellite sites. And they're national, so it saves people traveling all over the place. They can go to whichever place is closer. So we have around, out of the 200, we have around about 18 to 19 centers of excellence. And then what we then had to do was pick the best of the best. So we thought, if we're going to pilot this and we want it to work and we want to learn, we selected 5 that we thought would really, really take on the challenge and really embed it, and we can really learn and trust them to go through all of it. The first thing that we did after identifying our teams was that we invited them to a call. It was a cold call, so they had no idea what it was about. And the first thing that we gave to them was a survey. We didn't tell them what it's about. We just said it's a 2-minute survey. Please complete it. When they completed it, some of them were like, oh, that was really cool. Some are really stressed. And we were like, how did you find it? What did you know? And then we explained to them that we just wanted to understand, what is your understanding and knowledge of physical literacy? And it was quite low. And I think it's something that's a theme that for many of us. And it was a great starting point. We then explained what we're going to do with this, what the pilot is about, how we're partnering with the Positive Experience, and how we want to kind of embed it and trial it in their sites. So once we captured that information, let me just pop that down. Sorry, my screen just went small for a second. What we then did is that we made sure that the general managers who oversee the Centres of Excellence were prepared. What we then did is that they went back to their sites, and they looked and they examined how can they do that. They looked at the adventure program, and we thought, how can we embed this? Which leads me on to the middle box. What they did is that they replicated what I had done initially, or my team had done. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it today. They did the same thing with their teams. Went and understood what is their level of understanding about physical literacy, and it gave them the sale that this is what we want to do, this is the journey, this is how we want to embed it. And what we then thought about doing is that, how do we capture this information? There's so much data, there's so many angles and dimensions that we can go in. So we looked and researched, and we found an app called Move Ahead, and we've partnered with them. And what that allows us to do is that, I'll come a little bit later to what the Move Ahead app can do, but we use that to kind of capture everything that we were doing with the children. And it was based on everyday activities in the morning and in the afternoon. What we're hoping to do is that to raise that profile, to raise that awareness, once that information was captured and we were using the programming, we looked at how can we adapt the adventure program. We looked at monthly reviews with the general managers, and they went back to their teams and shared that. And then we looked at how are we going to identify changes, so the tracking and identifying and where the support was needed. And that was done monthly, but the general managers really took hold of it and kind of really ran with it. What we're hoping to achieve, if we look at the last box, is applying the physical literacy as a norm to all of our adventure programming. Also, at the end of it, we're still very much still in the test phase, so we're still learning. What have we learned? How do we move forward? We're going to assess that in the summer, and how can we actually adopt it and apply it? And that's where we're hoping to strengthen practices in our delivery, but also for the children, so they understand movement and play, and rather than it having to always be referred to as physical literacy, it will just be common knowledge and just a general conversation. Could I get the next slide, please? So as I've mentioned before, what we were doing is using the Move Ahead app and creating this pilot in and trialing it in 5 settings. Hopefully we want to go nationally eventually, but it's raising the profile and creating that awareness through conversations, and then making it a norm, using the general managers to really champion it and to put it forward. And what we also are hoping is that these conversations can lead to more awareness. And what we ended up noticing is that at time to time, those that work with a wider team, you know that sometimes there is sickness or absence. So our teams from those centers of excellence were going to other sites, and they were sharing what they were doing. And that created what we speak about as a ripple effect or domino effect. And those settings or managers were coming back to me and saying, why were we not chosen? What is this? Or I know a little bit about it, or I'd like this app. This sounds really good. So it created conversation, and it just raised that the profile and awareness, which was great. And the team chat that we have for all of our staff, it was really interesting to see and capture that information. We are also hoping that the pilot that we're doing with everyone and with the Move Ahead app is that we can embed it across the entire business as one of our platforms. So every site has access to it, and they can track and move and embed it into everything they're doing. And what we're hoping to do for the children is that we use something called the child's voice, and it's a common term, I know, but we use it. The children have meetings weekly in the clubs that they're in, and they discuss it and they understand it. And that we gave them some ownership once we explained what we were doing, and we were in a position for them to understand. They then took it forward and said, can we do it this? Can we do it that? And you could hear in general conversations when they were even eating their tea, they spoke about, oh, you haven't got a gripped hand, you're using your fingertips. And it was just small discussions like that that were really, really amazing. And it's what we were doing with them, is that through that child meeting, we were sharing the start, and then sharing images and sometimes the graphs, which I'll come to next, of where they were right at the beginning and where they are now. So the children were tracking their growth, but they were also able to be reinforced through conversation to raise that awareness. The thing that was really key was the consistent approach that we had. And that really reinforced what we were trying to get across. And it's credit to the teams, but also to the children for really reciprocating it and being on board. This is a little bit of what the Move Ahead app allowed us to do, and it really allowed us to capture movement. So you can see the first image. It is taken from the app. I couldn't get something directly from the sites because of safeguarding and so on. So I've just nicked it from the website. But you can clearly see what the children get to see is that you can see the stick man there. You can see the graph and then the information in the last image, which is really child friendly. So children can really understand it. It's very clear and the information is right there. If I can move on to the next part, please. I mean, at the moment, it's been really successful, like I'm saying, through conversations with children and engagement and reinforcing conversations. It's really created a lovely platform. It's also kind of rolled out to the school community and the parents, creating more conversation. It's something that's working really, really well. And we are thinking quite strongly about embedding it nationally to all our sites. But I'm just going to pick on two testimonials that we have here. And it was the one in the middle that it really made me focus on the language I use, step back for a moment and see the growth. And when I asked a little bit more about that, they said that it wasn't the growth of themselves or their teams, but also the children, but the interaction in general. It kind of created a buzz. It was really exciting. And the funny thing, that kids are going to be kids. It's what's the big deal? We're just moving. And just trying to create that understanding, but that's kids. But one of the things that was nice was that the last one is that I liked seeing my body as a stick man in the app. And I just thought these are such nice things that we were able to combine the two and bring it forward. And what we're hoping to do is, yeah, as it says, just create great moments and support the future for the children, but also for our teams, and hopefully spread the awareness going forward. If you have any questions, just give me a shout. And that's me done.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hasib. Thank you all for that. It's been a busy 9 months for you on the programme, and I know it's been tricky to try and get across as much information as you can, but I think, like the majority of the teams have said, it's this is just the start. So you've sort of got to this point now, and it's definitely not the end, and there's much more to move forward into. So I think, Lenny, let me know, have we still got time for a couple of questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think there's any questions in the chat. I think there was some sort of comments around some of the great work that we've heard. So if you have got a question, feel free to put it into the chat. We've got about 3 minutes before we introduce the listening circles. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I will also just ask a couple of questions, come to everybody. So first team, Cricket for All, what has been your biggest takeaway from the patchwork program?
I think and it's going to sound like a funny statement, but 9 months is never enough. And that, I mean that in the most positive way. You know, it feels like we've done a lot. We've made some real strong steps forward in building PL into everything that we do. But I think we have to be really conscious that we're not going to see the real effects of what we're doing for quite a long period of time. You know, this is a massive change. It's a system change. It's influencing people. It's the ripple effects, as we keep saying. And I think for me, we said we wanted to be brave. Absolutely, we'll continue to do that, but we really need to be patient. But that's not just sitting and waiting for stuff to happen. That's being proactive and embedding this into everything that we do. So, you know, I think that's the one key thing really from our perspective is just this is going to take time, but be consistent and stick with it.
Definitely, thank you. And I think that's heard loud and clear that it's not a quick process, it's small steps, but it's that impact that it'll have at the end. The Only Way is Eastwood. Is there something that you valued most about being involved in the patchwork program for these months?
I'll speak. Yeah, I'm really. I feel like I was kind of put into this sort of program through ways and means, but I'm so thankful and met, you know, Stephen and Mark, really good guys, doing the best, and we've just worked really well together, and I've just seen things from different angles. I think that's been useful for me. Do you know, see, I get focused on school life, and it's nice to see it from different perspectives. And you know, I feel like I've worked with two professionals, and that's been really beneficial to our setting. So I'd like to thank them publicly. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think it's the difference in organisations that are there, and the fact that you're from a primary school sort of really brings that to life. And lastly then, Hasib, is there anything that surprised you on your patchwork journey?
I think it was the main thing was working with like when we partnered with Move Ahead, when we spoke to the head teachers at some of the schools that we were deciding to pilot with. It was the lack of understanding, and they kept on asking, why is this important? You know, that word why, it kept on coming up, and I got a little bit irritated, and I turned around and said, well, why not? And I think it's something new. It's important. The journey that we had so far, some of the feedback that I shared shows how well received it is. It's something that, you know, the staff were really excited about, and once they finally understood how easy it was to apply it and just identify it in general movement, they were able to converse with the children, with parents, with schools itself. And I think that was the main thing for us, just getting it out there.
Brilliant, thank you. And I've just seen in the chat there's one comment, there's one question, and I think it's to anybody. Any comment around parental feedback? Has anybody got anything to sort of come in on that point on from the teams?
Yeah, we had something, like I mentioned, that we the 5 sites that we were the centers of excellence that I spoke about. You know, the children, obviously being children, it created conversation not only in the sites but with the parents, which was great, because, you know, if anyone's worked with children, the first thing you say, oh, how was your day? What did you do? Oh, nothing. And it was something that the parents were quite excited about, because they were like, what are you doing? What is this? What's this stickman that my child is talking about? What he was talking about, graphs, you know, and they're talking about how I was holding things or moving up and down the stairs. And, you know, it was nice. It created conversation from there. It was very well received. Parents were really intrigued. One of the parents were able to even show the data that we had captured on their child from the beginning to where they are now. And we actually included the child to lead that conversation rather than our members of staff. So from that perspective, it was very warmly received, and parents didn't know anything about it. Again, which is great, just raising the profile.
Yeah.
Everything that we've had is so far is quite positive. What we're hoping to do is add something onto our website, just as a little case study, just for others to kind of read, maybe have some interest in it, and then hopefully going forward use that as a platform when we eventually launch it in all our sites.
Brilliant. Thanks for answering that, Hasib. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today and preparing those for us. What we are going to do